Okay, so we still have about 3 minutes before everyone actually knows to jump in. So Laurie, I stand corrected on our time there. Thanks again, Jeff.
Well, we can just make chit chat. I love that. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Let's see. It looks like no. Oh, we now have people in the chat. So I guess in maybe the 2.5 minutes that we have, Laurie, would you maybe like to just briefly talk about intent for this session?
Sure. Well, I'm certainly excited to see everybody, and I'm joining y'all from Raleigh, North Carolina. So I don't know, in the chat, I would love to hear and see if anybody's been to Raleigh, North Carolina. And if you have, what are your memories of it? Do you like it? Did you not like it? So I am here today because I believe that human resources professionals are the key to reopening the economy, to reigniting talent, to getting people excited again about the world of work. But I also recognize that we're all employees and we all have a life outside of work. So hey, look at all these people. Oh, Salima, you woke up just for me. Thank you. If you have been to Raleigh, North Carolina, I definitely want to hear from you. And also, if we've met before, please say hello. It'd be lovely to reconnect with you. Look at so many great people. It's so fun to see y'all. Well, I'm here today just to make sure everybody feels good about being a worker, being a contributor, and also being a human being. So, Bakari, that's what I'm going to talk about today.
I think that's wonderful. I don't want us to get too far into that. So with 1 minute left before the session actually starts, what do you find most charming about Raleigh?
Well, I have to say we're about 2 hours and 15 minutes from the ocean and maybe about 3 hours from the beginning of the mountains. And so it's really situated in a very beautiful place here in America. So you get the best of both worlds. And I'm a beach girl myself. And so I have dreams of going further east to the coast. We have the northern part of the state has the Outer Banks, and then the southern part has what we call the Southern Outer Banks, the Crystal Coast, and it's just beautiful. And if you like golf, it's here. If you like to mountain bike, it's here. It's just really a beautiful part. And we're the #3 fastest growing area in America.
Whoa.
So nobody else move here, just come visit.
Cool. With that, you had great timing, Laurie. I am going to get into the introduction. So. Sure. I was fortunate enough to be able to have a few minutes to speak with Laurie. And here's part of that conversation with that introduction. Proper work-life balance. What does that mean? And is it actually possible? So I did a Google search for those exact words, proper work-life balance. And at the very top was 20 tips for maintaining a healthy work-life balance. And then under that, you also had entries for Forbes, the Mayo Clinic, the Atlantic, and the Guardian. A more simplistic and unapologetic approach is that of Laurie Ruettimann, who does not define herself through work. Those are her words, along with describing herself as deeply private, deeply committed to living a quality life without explaining it to people. Ruettimann works to afford quality time with family and rescue animals, time which is the greatest, most valuable commodity out there. Sharing her time with the intent to change the world is the author of Betting on You, podcaster of Punk Rock HR, and the human resources leader recognized by CNN as one of the top 5 career advisors in the U.S., Laurie Ruettimann.
Well, Bakari, thank you so much. And hello, everybody. Good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm so happy to connect. It's kind of a bummer that we have to do this on the internet. One of the real joys of my life before COVID was traveling and meeting people in the world of talent and people and human resources and hearing their stories and hearing about their dreams of what they want to do in the function. And I got excited about doing that because I was terrible at human resources. When I had that job, I was miserable. I was unhappy. It was not a good fit for me. I kind of fell into HR like so many of you who just have these happenstance careers. We go to university, we try to figure it out, we take a corporate job, and maybe it fits and maybe it doesn't. And in my case, the job that I took did not fit. And I like to tell people that I was burned out before it was cool. Right now, everybody's burned out. We're talking about burnout. But I was burned out like at the turn of the century. And I was young, like it was just really tragic. So I want to know, I'm going to launch a poll, which is always a challenge here. If you feel burned out, like just give me your honest answer. So I'm going to publish it and let's see how this works. Okay. Why don't you vote? So, oh, look at all the votes coming in. There are 4 people who are like, no way, I'm fine. Those people might be lying. So, all right, the answers are rolling in. Look at this. Wow, pretty amazing. 6 people are not burned out. Tell me your secrets. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And this maybe potentially ends my foray into the world of doing these polls. But all right. So let's talk a little bit about why I'm here today. You know, I'm not just here to talk about burnout. I fundamentally believe that people in human resources are here to change the world. Like, you don't go into HR because you like paperwork or you like administration or compliance. You're there to help people achieve their dreams, to work at the intersection of purpose and meaning. So often, though, we ourselves don't work at that intersection. And I just have this fundamental belief, having worked in the world of human resources now for 25 years, that we fix work for others by fixing it for ourselves first. You cannot show up and do anything amazing at your job if you do not feel great, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not curious, if you're not learning, if you don't know how to take a risk. How can you possibly do it for other people? I don't think we have this conversation enough internally within HR, within recruitment, within compensation. And we all have these big dreams to be advisors, to be coaches, to really help people achieve everything in their life. And it took me having a very basic breakdown at an airport to recognize that I was not taking care of myself. I was not fixing work for myself. And that's part of the reason why I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it at Pfizer, where I used to work. I worked at a company called Monsanto. I worked at another company that was acquired by Unilever. And every job I had, it was the same dang problems over and over again. They didn't take me seriously. I got promoted, but that promotion didn't mean anything because even though I had a leadership title, nobody treated me like a leader. And I realized at that airport that I wasn't treating myself like a leader. I wasn't running my life like a CEO, even though I am the CEO of my own life and you're the CEO of yours. And I had all these responsibilities outside of work, a mortgage, a family, all these things to take care of. But when I came to work, I just defaulted into the state of being an HR lady who was subservient to the leaders around me. So again, I recognized that if I wanted to fix work for other people, I had to fix it for myself. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So if you are like me and you're like, oh, you know, my job, it's good, I picked it, but it could be better. We're going to talk about 4 ideas today, and I want you to try these on for size. The first is self-leadership. It's the art and science of individual accountability. The second is well-being, and everybody talks about well-being right now. We'll talk about why that's right and why that's wrong. The third is learning, because if you're not learning, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, what's the point? And the fourth is risk-taking. And in my book, Betting on You, I teach a methodology, a practicum to take better risks. And it's an idea that you can teach to others in your organization. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about self-leadership. It's one of my favorite topics because it's kind of old school. It's the art and science of individual accountability. And it really has 3 parts that I've learned from, amazing leaders out there, including Sarah Blakely, who's the founder and CEO of Spanx. So self-leadership and its 3 parts are hard work, competence, and resilience. This means that a job worth doing is a job worth doing well. Years ago, I was lucky enough to spend a little bit of time with Sarah, and she told this story where she was working with a bunch of millennials, right? Stereotypical statement to make, but they were young, and this was a couple of years ago. They were new in their career. And these millennials were like, oh my God, this work is so confusing. It's so hard. And they were really just kind of leaning into some helplessness. And they looked to Sarah, the CEO of the company, and they asked, what do you think we should do? And Sarah looked at these high-performing, high-potential employees and said, I think you ought to do your job as if I weren't here. That means leaning into hard work, like really working hard to get it right the first time. Really being competent. She hired these individuals for their skills and abilities. And if they doubt themselves, she was going to doubt them. And then finally, to kind of tap into that inner resilience, that inner flexibility, to use your creative thinking skills, your cognition to figure out how to do this right. And then if you don't get it right, don't make a big deal out of it, just fix it. Because if you don't make a big deal out of it, Sarah's not going to make a big deal out of it. So anyway, those are the three components of self-leadership. But it's hard to remember that when we're in the trenches. And so I like to give the example of Nelson Mandela. Now, some of you may not know who this is, and that's absolutely okay. But Nelson Mandela was the first Black president of South Africa. And before that, they were in an apartheid state, which means that the whites were really in charge and oppressing the Black residents of South Africa. So a lot of history there. And so Nelson Mandela was a dissident, but he believed in a nonviolent way of protest. And so they arrested him at a young age and put him in jail. And he was in jail for many decades. But no matter how he was treated, no matter what he endured, and he endured some terrible things, Nelson Mandela chose his attitude. He respected his captors. He tried to treat them with the dignity that wasn't afforded to him. And I think there are lessons here for you, by the way. Boss, employee, director, wherever you fall on the org chart, you're not a victim. You're absolutely in control of your career, even when it doesn't feel that way. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, Laurie, I'm no Nelson Mandela, and believe me, neither am I, and I don't expect that of you. But if someone under those circumstances can choose his attitude, can recognize that what's happening right now is in the short term, and there's a long-term play here, if he could be detached enough to not react, to calm his emotional center down, I think there's hope for you and me as well. I think another example of self-leadership is Michael Jordan. And I recognize that I'm speaking to a mostly Canadian audience here, but Michael Jordan is someone that I grew up watching on TV. I grew up in Chicago for my first 14 years, and it was the height of the Chicago Bulls. And I'm not very sports oriented, but Michael Jordan was just this larger than life media figure. And you may have seen him on a documentary recently called The Last Dance. The interesting thing about Michael Jordan is that he recognized there was no such thing as practice. Even if he got it wrong, he showed up and gave it 110%. Like, his work ethic was astounding. And it reminds me that, big moments, small moments, it's all work. It's all important. And so often in life, we're scared and we hold back and we think, oh, I don't want to give 110%. But in that moment when you're scared, that's actually a moment of greatness. That's when you can do some amazing stuff. You can take risks. So I wouldn't say channel your inner Michael Jordan, but certainly a work ethic is a core component of being a self-leader and demonstrating to your entire enterprise that you've got this, that you can execute flawlessly, that you can do it under any circumstances, and your workforce can trust you. So what isn't self-leadership? And that's a really big, broad question. Well, self-leadership isn't about unrelenting standards that beat you down. Tiger Woods, again, another American example, I'm sorry, is someone who is great at golf, but has not been great at life, right? He's okay at doing his job, more than okay, but his personal life is a mess. And that's because he has voices in his head of the critics, of his dad, of all these people who are telling him you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, including himself. And until he does the work of calming those voices, well, he's going to be a great golfer, but everything else in his life is going to be diminished. And I think that happens to many of us out there. We think if I'm just really great at my job, everything else will fall into place. And unfortunately, That's not a life of balance, purpose, or meaning. The other thing self-leadership isn't are these motivational speeches. And I recognize I'm giving you a semi-motivational speech right now, but I'm not, because I don't believe anybody can motivate you. You motivate yourself. And this is a really important lesson for HR professionals, because we think if we just implement this policy or this program, or we reconfigure our talent strategy, we're going to get great people in. Great people are great because they make a choice and they work at it. And that includes you. So self-leadership is all about being the boss of your feelings, your thoughts, your actions, no matter who is the boss around you. You know, years ago, I reported into this HR director named Bonnie, and boy, she was a pain in my ass. And I would come home from work and I'd be like, Bonnie this and Bonnie that. And my husband would be like, Bonnie, Bonnie, Bonnie. And it was just like a thing between us. Bonnie was not only making work terrible, she was making my home life terrible. And it wasn't until I got a little distance from Bonnie that things started to get a little bit better. But I didn't get distance from her at work. I got distance from her in my mind. I'm like, Bonnie's going to do Bonnie. It's fine. But as long as I show up and demonstrate integrity, as long as I show up and have a work ethic, doesn't matter what Bonnie says, because my clients will recognize my hard work. So I just want to give an example of all of this in my dad, because my dad worked at the same company, a phone company, an old utility here in America for, I don't know, like 28 years. And no matter where he worked, no matter what job he had, he was always thinking about work. And, you know, he had this beautiful family at home. We were cute kids, you know, we were a lot of fun. My dad used to like music. He was a hippie, but he got married. He took this job to support us, and the job became his life. And towards the end of his career, he was drinking pretty heavily. He was always complaining about work, never quite saved up enough money, you know, even though he made good money. And it was just a real good example that he never bet on himself. He always looked to others to make him feel good in this world. And it wasn't just a work problem, it was a life problem. And it was a lesson for me, because early in my career, I was following that path, you know, drinking too much, eating too much, blaming other people for my work. You know, that's no way to live. And to this day, my father still struggles with his identity and where he fits in this world. And I didn't want to be in my 70s feeling that way. So learn a lesson from my family, from my dad, that if you don't start to professionally detach, back away from work a little bit and get some other good stuff in your life and get excited about life and treat your job as if they're a client, you're going to end up down a pretty lonely and sad path. And also, people aren't going to trust you in your position of human resources. You've got to be living your best life. You've got to look happy. You've got to love your work, because if you don't, you cannot sell it to candidates and existing employees. All right. So I think as we wrap up this discussion about self-leadership, I want to leave you with one thing, and that is your work, that work you do, is not necessarily your worth. That all the other good stuff in your life, that underdeveloped personal life that's just waiting to be developed, is out there. And the more you put good stuff in your life outside of work, the more you can bring that to work. Bring your passion for art, for music, for science, whatever it is, to your job, and live this model of leadership so that others can see it and start to enjoy their lives as well. If you double down on work and all you do is work, you live a one-dimensional life, and work will never leave you satisfied. But if you do develop those other aspects and you bring that joy into your job, boy, it can make all the difference. And that's what self-leadership is all about. So just a quick tip, I want you to practice these ideas around self-leadership, around detachment and work ethic in the small moments so that you nail it in the big moments. Don't ever just walk into your CEO's office suddenly confident, you know, like lecturing him or her on what self-leadership is, right? No, but you know, if you want to live a life where you're working a little bit less and you want more work-life balance, you can start with people on your team who are driving you crazy. Because, you know, if you get it wrong, you piss them off, you're not going to get fired. So if there's a conversation that you need to have because you want to do a certain type of work, practice in the small moments. And then you can go have that conversation with your director, with your VP. So practice in the small moments to nail it in the big moments. All right, let's talk about well-being, something that's really important and kind of trendy right now. Well-being is the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy in your life, not just your body. I think right now the discussion around well-being is all about like get fit and shed your COVID weight. And like, you could be fit at any size, right? This is not about weight. This is not about not smoking. This is not about reducing your alcohol intake. Although if you need that, those can be components for you. This is about the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. These are emotional positions in your life. So let's talk about the 3 pillars of well-being right quick: physical, emotional, and financial. So for me, physical is just being, is more than just being disease-free. Right now, I have so many conversations with friends here in America because we're starting to open up, and it's like, how you doing? It's like, I'm great. I'm vaccinated. I don't have COVID. As if that's the definition of feeling great. Like that is the lowest rung of feeling great. Not having COVID, okay, great, terrific. I'm happy for you. For me, physical well-being is a choice to ensure a balanced state of body, mind, and spirit. This is about waking up and feeling refreshed and energized and feeling excited about the day. And what I've learned in my life is that nobody can do this for you, and you cannot tackle the world. You can't be great at your job on 4 hours of sleep. You can't do anything amazing in this world if you're eating meals off of your toddler's plate. That doesn't happen that way. And now all of us are busy and we say, oh, I don't have time to sleep, or I don't have time to make myself a good meal. But if you have time to be on Facebook, if you have time to be on the internet, you've got time to eat better, and you've got time to fuel your body in a way that makes you feel good, whatever that is for you. So I just want to challenge you that it's not necessarily about dropping, a couple of pounds or kilograms or whatever scale we're on. It's not about, making sure you look good and you've got the summer beach bod. It's about feeling as if you can do the things you want to do in the body that you've been gifted. That's what physical well-being is all about. Emotional well-being is a positive outlook that allows you to choose your attitude and tackle the everyday demands of life. And so often in human resources, we are the first to burn out. Like, it makes no sense because we're trying to fight burnout in the rest of the organization. And meanwhile, we close the curtain and we go back into our inner lives and we're like, dang, I'm tired. Yeah, of course you're tired. You're doing hard, difficult work right now, and you need to respect your body, your mind, and your spirit. Financial well-being is the 3rd pillar of well-being, and I want to talk about this for a second because right now it's very trendy in the world of human resources to put people into these financial literacy programs. We say, people, they don't know what to do with their money. They don't know how to budget. And it turns out pay equity is the #1 issue that we could be working on to make sure that people are paid fairly across our enterprise, whatever position they're in, whatever their race, their gender, their identifying origins are. Paying people fairly, lifting people into a new way of living has a positive impact on their physical and emotional well-being. Here in America, many years ago, we implemented the minimum wage, and then we raised it and we kept raising it. And then in the 1960s, at some point, we decided everybody should participate in the minimum wage. And it lifted 20% of our population out of poverty. And when you lift people out of poverty, when you give them money to do more than just survive, but you give them a little bit of money to thrive, you actually reduce the costs around mental health. You reduce the costs around, health insurance and negative health outcomes. So if you want to start anywhere in your organization on well-being, start with financial well-being. Look to pay equity. And there's a new book coming out, and I can't remember the name of the book, but write this down. It's by the author David Buckmaster, and he's writing about the truth. He works in compensation. He's writing about the truth around the pay gap, pay inequality, and what companies can do going forward. And this book is well reviewed. It's well starred. It's coming out on June 29th, and I'm so excited because he has a lot of answers for us when it comes to financial well-being. All right, so the third pillar of this is continuous learning. And again, we've talked about, we've talked about self-leadership, we've talked about well-being. Continuous learning is one way that you can bet on yourself. And we don't do this enough in human resources. We focus on other people's learning, but not our own. And I believe there are really two types of learning. The first is structured learning opportunities. These are often mandated things we have to do, and we're like, another training, another this, another that. But all learning is worthwhile. And even if you have to go into mandatory training for sexual harassment or compensation or whatever it is for you, you could learn a lot about how to present, how to speak, how to captivate an audience or not captivate an audience, right? There's a lot of things to be learned. Learning for the sake of learning is really interesting. So I want you to lean into structured learning opportunities. The other thing is that so often in our organizations, our employees complain about mandatory training because they see us in HR complaining about it. All learning is worthwhile. I want you to repeat that in your head, all of it. No matter what you do, if you're learning something new, you're growing. And that's what life is all about. I think the second kind of learning are these organic learning opportunities that pop up. And not enough can be said about just learning something new for the sake of learning, right? We've been in lockdown, and many of you are still in lockdown, and it's hard to go see demonstrations or to do a secondment or to even connect with mentors right now or have a luncheon or go to happy hours. But this won't be forever. And when the economy starts to open up, leaning into these organic learning opportunities can actually make you better at your job. I'm training people and coaching people right now who are just learning for the sake of learning how to use a DSLR camera, learning how to smoke meat, learning, I'll give you one example. I am a cat person, but during quarantine, I fostered dogs, and I had to learn how to be a good pack leader and learn how to work with these dogs. And I learned more about human behavior than I've learned in a very long time. And I also learned that I love dogs. So, it was like a win-win. But learning in these organic ways is super important, and you will bring that back to your job, and that's what life is all about. I want to give you the ultimate hack, though, for learning, and that is to find a mentor. And a mentor isn't someone that you have to sit down with 4 times a year, like it's 1997. You can just admire someone on the internet. You can connect with them on LinkedIn or not, and take the good stuff and then move on and ignore the rest. And I have a lot of examples in my own life like that. There's a woman by the name of Susie Welch, who is a journalist, a thought leader in her own right. She used to be married to Jack Welch, who was the former CEO of GE. And I admired her greatly, and I always followed her good stuff, including something called the 10-10-10 rule. And that's this. You have a problem that comes to you, and you think to yourself, how is this going to bug me in 10 minutes, in 10 months, in 10 years? And you regulate your emotional energy accordingly. So if this is going to be a big problem in 10 minutes, you probably want to solve it. 10 years, you're going to look at it differently. 10-10-10. So I love this. It's one of the things I think about all the time. I'm fighting with my husband, or I get hate mail on the internet. 10-10-10. Is this a problem now? Is it even a problem? Problem in 10 months, 10 years? I file it accordingly. I wrote to Susie Welch, and I'm like, I love this 10-10 rule. I've been following it. I want to include it in my book. So heads up, on LinkedIn, this is coming. She actually wrote back, and she said, I love it. Thank you so much for following me. And I would love to take a look at your book. And not only did she take a look at my book, she endorsed it. Not bad, right? So you never know where these relationships are going to come and go, and where they're going to end up. So make sure you find a mentor in your life, and it doesn't have to be someone who you sit down with as if it's old school. So finally, the fourth pillar of really betting on yourself is this idea of risk-taking. And if we were in a live audience, I would have this amazing exercise for you, but we're going to do it together over the internet in an abbreviated way. And if you have any questions for me, just ping me on LinkedIn, okay? So first and foremost, when we think about risk-taking, I want you to just close your eyes and think about the bravest person you know. For me, that's Michelle Obama. She really went through a lot here in America to be our first African-American first lady. She did it with poise, with character. She's talking about low-grade depression right now. I mean, really making a commitment to making the world a better place. And it's very difficult to be the first. I think she's done it with grace and with poise. So she's the bravest person I know, but it's not like she just jumps into things without thinking about it. She practices in the small moments to nail it in the big moments. And so what does she do? What does anybody do who totally nails it? Well, I think they do an exercise called the pre-mortem, and I'm going to teach it to you today. So the pre-mortem is an old Stoic way of thinking where you flash forward in your mind into the future and you think, how is this going to blow up in my face? How am I about to screw this up? And then you fix the things you're about to screw up before you actually do it. So the exercise for you and me looks like this. Step one, think about an activity where you're about to fail. Could be that you're interviewing for a new job. Could be that you're about to remodel your kitchen and you're like, oh, that's a big project. How is that going to fail? So think about that activity. Keep it in your mind. And if we were together, I would set a timer for 60 seconds and have you just write down, old school, paper and pen, all the ways things are going to fail. So let's take the example of interviewing for a job, right? How would that fail? Boy, that's going to fail easily because maybe you don't tell a good story, or maybe you make terrible eye contact, or maybe you get too sweaty, or maybe you have impostor syndrome, or you don't have good stories to tell about where you've been, or your references aren't where they need to be, or you don't know how to convince the person you're talking to that they don't need someone who fills that job at 100%, because nobody ever hires at 100%. But you've got a good 40 to 50% of that job, but you're just not quite sure how to communicate that, right? Okay, you've got your list, and only do it for a minute. We don't want you spiraling out of control. Nothing good is going to happen from that. But when the timer goes up, take a look at that list and look at the silly, the irreverent, the just stupid things you wrote down because you're just trying to write things down. Cast those aside. But you're probably going to have 2 to 3 really good nuggets of ways that you would self-sabotage or you're not prepared. Those are the things you need to fix before you actually go on that interview. And that list that you've just written becomes your roadmap. If you fix that shit, if you actually give yourself an opportunity to go through there and be your own best critic, right, before anybody else can criticize you, you're going to give yourself a huge competitive advantage. If you complete the pre-mortem, you increase your chance of success by over 30%. Now, that's not just me. That's not Aristotle or Seneca. That's Professor Gary Klein, who has written about this, teaches at Stanford, has taught at Cornell. He's been all over, right? You know, at Harvard. He works with companies like IBM, Cisco, Red Hat, NASA, you know, companies that make big, you know, bridges, companies that just do these small web projects. But they use the pre-mortem internally to really get past blind spots and biases. So before they start a project, they get the team together and they tell the team, we want you to tell us how this thing we're about to do is going to fail. And when they do that, they uncover all sorts of different glitches, things that can go wrong. It's really a beautiful exercise. It probably needs to be done with a consultant, someone who can really pull that out of the group. But I love it. You could do that before open enrollment, before you have a rec that you're about to publish. How is this going to fail? And you can figure that out. Oh, we've got Bakari back. Sorry, Bakari. I'm almost done.
No worries. I'm here.
All right. So listen, everybody, if you want to bet on yourself and work at the intersection of purpose and meaning, I've got some real quick tips for you. Number 1, I want you to demonstrate self-leadership. Number 2, invest in well-being. Number 3, make a commitment to learning, because when you're learning, you're growing. And when you're growing, you're thriving. And that's what life is all about. And then finally, I want you to get skilled at risk taking. Do that pre-mortem. Do it every single time. Do it before you go on vacation with your family. Do it before you have Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like, figure out how you're going to fail, and I think it'll change your life. So with that, I want to say thank you and invite everybody. We're going to do some questions, but there are all different kinds of ways to reach me. You can find me on LinkedIn. I've got some LinkedIn learning courses. I've got a newsletter, and I've got a book as well. And I know there have been some winners of my book. So I just want to thank Jeff and the team here for giving away my book. I'm just so thrilled about that. And listen, it's a recession. You don't have to buy my book. You can go to the library. You can get it for free, or just ping me and maybe I have a PDF for you at some point. So Bakari, with that, let's take some questions.
Okay, so it looked like someone did have a raised hand, but when I clicked there, it's gone. Laurie, do you mind if I use these few moments to be a little selfish and ask you a question myself?
I love that. Please, thank you.
So first off, I have to say how blown away I am with what you are saying and the advice that you are giving, because this is what people charge thousands and thousands of dollars to share.
Right.
One of the things that really stood out to me was, I think it was maybe like my third job in TV or something. And, one of the consultants came in, and part of what they were doing, and, with branding as well, one of the things that they said was physical well-being. Just what you said. These are next level things. And it's not like, you have to have an 8-pack, yes, because you can't have an 8-pack, or you have to be a certain size. It's about, when you work out, you have the endorphins, you feel better, and it's about feeling better and looking better. And when you have these things in place, it's easier to do better and be better. Can you talk about the importance of how these are things to be next level?
Sure, absolutely. When I worked in human resources, I remember being 28 years old and sneezing and throwing out my back. And then I had back pain, right? So I'm walking around with back pain. And then I'm eating Starburst for dinner and drinking a Pepsi at an airport because I'm between flights. None of that was the food that would fuel me to have the really difficult conversations that I needed to have with myself about my life, and also with people around me, because at the time I was laying people off all over the world. And I wanted to show up and give them my best, but I wasn't even showing up for myself. So sometimes when we're stuck in our career, the most important thing we can do is take a step back. We don't have to work 60 hours. It's not like you're going to work another hour and it's going to turn things around. In fact, if you peel back some time, nobody's going to notice. And if you reallocate your budget to yourself and start to work a little bit on self-improvement, and again, who gives a rip about your shape? That's not what this is about. It's about how you feel on the inside. If you feel your best, you can do your best. And a lot of people think it takes like liquid diets, or you got to be on keto, or got to be gluten-free, and maybe your body needs that, but sometimes it just needs to eat a good dinner, not drink a Pepsi at 9:00 at night. So that's what I think about that, Bakari. But you can't be next level if you're not next level with your own physical and emotional well-being.
And Laurie, we have one question from Jeff, and then I do have other questions for you. But Jeff says, I love your tips, Laurie. My question is about mental health. So many people in my close circles are struggling mentally. It's really hard. What are your thoughts on this as it relates to the key tips you shared? And if I may, Laurie,
Sure.
This past year, I was awarded a fellowship with the Carter Center. And I'm a 2020-2021 Rosalind Carter Mental Health Journalism Fellow. My perspective has been changed. My eyes have been open, and different things like language. When I'm more aware of the language that I'm using when it refers to mental health and mental health awareness, it changes everything.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on that fabulous honor. I mean, Bakari, that's amazing. So a couple of things. Within human resources, sometimes we like to play therapist. Even as recruiters, we listen to people's stories, right? And it's really important to remember that we are not professionals. And in my own world of coaching, I coach for people to have, these amazing careers, these amazing lives, more importantly. But if I think someone needs therapy, the coaching stops and I make them go get, like I say, we can't work together unless you're also working with a therapist. So that's real important for me to say, because people come into our virtual offices these days with all of their drama, all of their burdens. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we become, it's like we become infected. It's emotional contagion. So that's why it's so important for human resources professionals to double down on their emotional well-being, their mental health, because we have to be strong. But more importantly, life is not to be lived in the shades of black and gray. Life is vibrant. Life is amazing. And I just think that if there's something in your world that's dragging you down and you have access to mental health benefits, let this be a sign. I mean, I believe in everybody in this meeting. I believe in your inherent worth. You're not worthy because you work in human resources or you have a director title. You're worthy because you were born. Your work is not your worth. And you deserve a life of goodness, of fulfillment, of happiness. And so I just think, boy, if I could do anything in this world, it's to push people towards the light and away from the darkness. So that's my goal.
And Laurie, as we begin to wrap up the last 3 minutes, I'd also like to pose this. You talked about mentors and how basically shifting how we think about mentors and who we have in our lives, who we look to for this information, for this expertise. When you go back to that, can you also relate it to the bigger picture of just changing the way that we think about everything in order to move to that next level? Because what you said about having, multiple mentors at different times, that's next level.
Well, here's the deal. What I'm really talking about is going after what you want in life and not being intimidated by people, titles, status, money, wealth. I come from a very basic working class family. First person in my family to go to and graduate from college. First person in my family to travel abroad, and live abroad. Like, I've got all of these things, and it didn't happen. I mean, I have inherent privilege still baked within my life, but I also took a lesson from the high performers around me and thought, what the hell is the difference? And the difference was they asked for it. They weren't afraid of hearing no. I also did, before I knew what it was called, the pre-mortem. And the same thing is true with mentoring. If there's someone who has a life that you want, make that person your mentor, or just follow them and copy the good stuff. So that's really, Bakari, what this is all about. If you want to be a chief people officer, the head of talent, go find someone who's doing that exceptionally well and mimic the shit out of them. Like, find out what's going right in their lives and do that. And that's the way you move yourself forward.
Laurie, this is spot on. I wish we had this conversation when I was 26 years old.
Me too, yeah.
This is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that most valuable commodity that we can own, and that's time. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Be safe out there.
Thank you. And so right now, everyone, we are going to take a 5